Hello, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Goldmaking, presented by darkshorecapital. This episode is for the week of November 6th, 2018. Let's get into the market update for the week. First thing to note, this is the first episode since BlizzCon 2018. What do we notice? No BlizzCon bump. And if you were to go look at the wowtoken.info chart for the period over the weekend, you will notice no BlizzCon bump. Think we can officially say that that's just not a thing. I don't know if anyone ever was theorizing that it was a thing, but I can certainly definitively say BlizzCon does not significantly increase the price of WoW tokens. Otherwise, BFA materials that we're tracking, continuing to trend downwards. Interestingly enough, the BOEs on the US side are up a little bit, whereas the BOEs on the EU side are down a little bit. One thing to note, the week-to-date and the month-to-date, of course, have the same percentage this week because week to date and month to date are going to be the same. We're in a new month. Moving on to the next section, nothing too terribly interesting. I did add a new material, a legacy material, Primal Fire from the Burning Crusade expansion. It's a crafting material used for Burning Crusade stuff. I did a lot of Burning Crusade crafting work over the weekend, so I kind of wanted to add this in there to start tracking it. It's very interesting. Burning Crusade crafting for transmog purposes is really interesting content for me. It's honestly, I want to do more of an expose on exactly why I think it's so great, but there's a lot going for it in Burning Crusade. The scarcity of materials, the diversity of recipes, and yeah, I think that if Blizzard wants to get back to kind of the roots of what made a good crafting system in World of Warcraft, maybe they should look at Burning Crusade. But I digress. We'll leave that for another time. No updates on carry prices this week. If anybody does have any interesting new prices, please let me know. That's a nice segue into the first topic of news, which is Blizzard has announced that cross-realm, Mythic Uldir is being enabled as of the recording of this episode. So the 6th of November. What does this mean? Well, anyone looking to sell carries for Mythic Uldir now has a lot more options. They can sell cross-realm, not just on their own realm. For anyone who doesn't know, the Mythic raid instance is typically locked to you can only enter a Mythic raid with characters that are currently on your realm, unlike every other instance in the game. Blizzard does usually lift this restriction after a while. With the new Hall of Fame system, they kind of said that they were going to do once 100 guilds, or 100 groups rather, from each faction achieved the Mythic Gahoon kill, they would open it up to everyone. So I actually don't know if that did actually happen or not, but either way, they're doing it now. So people can sell Mythic Uldir carries across realm. My suspicion is this will reduce the price of the Mythic Uldir carries. However, it could be possible that with a larger audience for people interested in this stuff, it could drive the price up. I don't know. We're going to have to see. I'm going to do some more looking into prices of this over time and see if I can get back to you guys with something interesting. Next little piece of news. As you all know, I'm a big fan of Classic WoW. We got the announcement over BlizzCon, summer 2019. Can't wait. Classic WoW is going to be great. Next piece of news. This is a quote from an interview Q&A during BlizzCon, and I quote, "There is a fundamental rewrite of the code for the auction house that is actively being worked on. When it is implemented, the band-aid fix of the 20% auction house cut will not be needed." Hooray! Finally, after 14 years, we're finally getting an update to the auction house. There's so much that I could talk about for so very long about improvements that could be made to the auction house. Like, why don't we have buy and sell orders in the auction house? This just seems like really basic stuff. But I digress. It's being worked on. It's great to get some news that we are moving in the right direction. And lastly for news, this is a bit more of on a personal note. At the end of October, saw the first year anniversary of darkshorecapital. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who's been with me for the ride so far. I'm looking forward to another year and another great set of content. We're going to go straight into Q&A for this evening. Got some good, solid, meaty questions here, so hopefully this can provide you some interesting gold-making discussion and content. First question. Is it worth investigating which stat combinations sell better than others, or would the return on investment in terms of time not be worth it? So this question is asking if the random stat allocation you get when you craft a BOE item for more current expansions, is it worth it to kind of min-max your way to specific stat combinations? And my answer to this is complicated. The short answer is, for the crafted stuff, probably not. However, my hypothesis is as the item level of a crafted item increases, the more the specific stat allocation matters. And it is possible to get higher item level crafts, like if you proc an extra item levels on it, that stuff's going to matter a little bit more. Here's the reasoning. When people get just kind of the basic level, I think it's item level 300 crafted gear, they're just getting it to get the item level. They just hit 120, and they just need to replace some of their questing green so they can start doing things like heroics, LFR, etc., etc. So they really don't care about the stats too much at that point. Having gone in and purchased some of these items, I will say that there is a variation in the price between kind of the really most undesirable ones and the more desirable ones, but it's not super significant. However, as you get a higher and higher item level, which means the item is more and more likely to be used for a longer period of time, those stats start to matter a little bit more. I've been doing some research on BOEs, the actual raid drop or world drop BOEs in Battle for Azeroth, trying to come up with kind of a tier list, so to speak, of those BOEs. And there's a clear skew in the overall stat priorities across all classes and specs towards critical strike and haste. It's really haste and critical strike. This is just in general. And so pieces with haste on them tend to go for more, is really what it comes down to. So that's the long answer. It does matter. I would probably take the time to think about it because I think it is worth it. But there you have it. The higher the item level, the more it matters. Next question. Do you think we're going to have TSM for Classic? I've always kind of assumed that we will. TSM guys, if you're watching, please, let's have TSM for Classic. If you need help with it, let me know. That's something I'd be more than happy to help with. Next question. How would you recommend getting into transmog flipping? How do you find the right items? Shorter answer is don't. It's a tough market. It's really slow moving, it's really illiquid, and if you don't have tons and tons of items, probably upwards of 400 plus items per server, you're not going to see consistent returns. So there was a big concern when the transmog wardrobe was added at the end of Warlords of Draenor that the entirety of the transmog market would die. Now this isn't the case, but it did leave a lasting effect. In general, I would say that the higher value transmog items tended to keep their value, but the lower value ones, the like 5,000 gold and under, just it's just really not worth your time anymore. So the longer answer is, in order to get into transmog flipping, you need to meet a couple criteria. Number one, you need to have enough liquid gold. I'm thinking like over 2 million to be able to invest a significant portion of that gold without hindering your ability to pivot and buy things that you might need on a more immediate basis. There's a lot to be said for having a decent amount of liquid gold so you can respond to opportunities. So if you can afford to tie up a portion of your liquid gold, of your total asset value in transmog, that's kind of the first requirement. Now, if you've met that goal, and this is something you want to get into, it's hard for me to come up with a lot of compelling reasons to want to do this. I mean, there are some very, very high value transmog items which can be very attractive because they have very, very high price tags. So maybe that's why. Maybe the correct course of action is just to target the really high value stuff. I don't know. That's really for you to decide. But I digress. If that's something you do want to get into, make sure you have enough gold. Number two, my general philosophy when it comes to transmog flipping, which I have done in the past, is pretty much exactly what Fat Loots laid out back in his transmog videos back in the day, if any of you guys remember. Buy at 20% DB region market and under, and with low enough volume so that you aren't competing too heavily with others, and sell at approximately 50% region market value and above. That's the basic philosophy that I've used for transmog flipping in the past. I have not made a lot of gold on transmog flipping in the past couple years, so use with caution. There you go. Those are my thoughts on transmog flipping. And finally, last question for the night. How do you rate low, medium, high population at this point? Now, this is referring to server population, and specifically this kind of is leading me into a conversation that I had on Twitter with a fellow gold maker, and which led to this infographic. Now, first of all, I want to say that this image is, of course, courtesy of my colleague, Dork-Side. Really hope I said your name right. I tend not to think about how names are said in my head until I need to say them. Anyways, you should follow him on Twitter. That's his handle, super duper SRS. Posts a lot of really interesting kind of like high-powered spreadsheet gold stuff. By the way, make sure to tell him that he needs to use more commas. Bugs the crap out of me. Anyway, what we're looking at here is realm population over the past year or so. So the first kind of box is realm population of a select few realms. I believe this is in the US a year ago on the right, current year, and the last column, of course, is the difference. So you can see that on Illidan, for example, which is the highest population horde realm in the US, they've lost almost 400,000 players, according to, I believe this is a WoW Realm Pop data source. Now, I don't know how much I really trust that data source completely. It's got some shortcomings in my opinion, but nevertheless, that's a pretty significant amount of characters difference. So what he's asking here is, how do you classify these things? How does the change of this population change over time? How does this affect things? Because classically, if you talk to people like Brigvids, he'll say, go to the medium pop realms where there are raiding guilds so that, if you want to do BOE flipping, you have a market for your BOEs. That's some solid advice. But what does a medium population realm mean these days? And the concern, of course, is that with this huge exodus, as we can see in the data, this is what it's saying, of players over the past year, how do we even define a medium pop server anymore? And my answer to that is probably more anecdotal than I would like, but it's what I've got. I've been doing, BOE and Battle Pet selling over a good variation of servers for the past year or so, and really, I don't know that too much has changed. It's possible that there's just a less of a market, but I think at the end of the day, really, the kind of the mid pop servers are still mid pop servers. When asked this question initially, I kind of responded with, if you go to WoW Progress for the server and you see like a page-ish worth of guilds that have at least a mythic boss down, I think that's kind of like your mid-population server, assuming it's not one of the big top 10 or so. Anything under that, under the top 10, that has enough of a population of mythic raiders to support a BOE, that's kind of what I consider the mid-population servers, the ones that you really want to target for having a good market to sell your BOEs in. Now, of course, there's all kinds of factors that go into what makes a server good or not. There's some RP servers that I've tried to sell stuff on, and it's tough to get started on those servers for whatever reason. It's probably just because of their popularity, honestly. But nevertheless, lots of stuff gets into it. I think there's a lot to be said, a lot of conversation we had around this topic. And like I said, I've only scratched the surface. Love to hear what anyone else thinks. If you guys have any more tales about servers you're on or how things are there, love to hear about it. So please leave a comment or reach out to me on Twitter and let's continue this discussion, because I think there's a lot more to be said. It's going to wrap it up for the week. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. If you have any questions, like I said, reach out on YouTube, comments below. You can find me on Twitter at darkshorecap, or if you'd like, I do have an email address. You can email me, darkshorecapital@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to share, more than happy to exchange words with you there as well. That's going to do it for the night. Hope you all have a wonderful week in gold making, and we'll see you next time.